Hey guys, welcome to another video. My name is Ian. I hope you're having a wonderful day today. Thank you so much for stopping by my channel. Today, I have a book review for you all of a very exciting new release that is out this week, and it's a book that I absolutely loved. The book I'm talking about is The Third Rule of Time Travel by Fracassi. If the name Fracassi sounds familiar to you, he has been quite the prolific author in the past few years, so that definitely makes sense. But his name is more synonymous these days with the horror genre, because a lot of his books, like Boys in the Valley and Gothic, are horror books. This is a science fiction novel, though, and so when I heard that Fracassi was coming out with a sci-fi novel, I was immediately intrigued. So what's this book about? In this, we have a science fiction time travel story, but not in a way that you've ever experienced before. To best tell you what I'm talking about, let's just go ahead and read some of the back of the book. Rule 1, you can only travel to a point within your lifetime. Rule 2, you can only travel for 90 seconds. And Rule 3, you can only observe. The rules cannot be broken. So essentially, that's the setup of the time travel here. It's not you step into a time machine and you travel to the distant past or the distant future. It's you can, utilizing this time machine, relive 90 seconds of your life, and you can only observe. Now, that may sound like not a super compelling version of time travel, and I have to admit that at the beginning of the book, I kind of felt the same way, but that is quickly done away with because we are immediately immersed into the story and the experience of time travel, like literally page 1, and I was so hooked by the story. From the very beginning, this had me on the edge of my seat, and I had such a blast with this book. At the heart of the story, we find Beth Darlow, who is the creator with her husband of this time travel technology. And I do appreciate that we have Beth as the protagonist because not only is she grappling with, just everything that's going on in her life in general. For one, the tragic passing of her husband that took place about a year before the story started. But additionally, we have this element of her as a female scientist in this primarily male-led field, having to stand up for herself and be bold and be brave and be outspoken. And she was such a fantastically done character. I really, really appreciated her. But additionally, she has a lot of obstacles that she has to face, not only dealing with the emotional weight of having lost her partner, not only in life, but also in her career, who created this technology with her, but also she has a corporation on her back that has been funding her technology and her research that is now asking for things that are unreasonable and putting her in a very dangerous work environment that leads to some pretty serious consequences for her as an individual. All these things kind of work together in addition with the fact that there are some things going on that make Beth realize she's unsure of who she can trust to create a book that is a science fiction book, but is a sci-fi thriller, to be honest. Like, this book is absolutely compelling, not only just due to the sci-fi elements, but also the storytelling and the pace and the plot. This reads like kind of Blake Crouch, like if you enjoy Dark Matter or Recursion, or if you like Michael Crichton books, this is going to be the book for you. And one thing I was really curious about with this book as well is, again, it's a sci-fi book, but this book is written by a typically horror author. And so I wondered to myself, is it going to feel like a sci-fi? Is it going to feel like a horror? And the answer is yes. Because this is definitely a science fiction book, but there were some moments that had me uncomfortable, had me on the edge of my seat, that were incredibly eerie and atmospheric in a way that made me not like what was going on, but it was so well executed. I loved Fracassi bringing that horror edge to the science fiction story. It was such a delight to read. I don't want to spoil too much about this book because ultimately you just need to know that Beth is in a situation that is getting more and more intense, more and more unhealthy, and there are people around her who she should not be trusting as she continues to try to do research into time travel. That's all you really need to know about the plot. Just enter into it with that kind of setup and you'll be fine. But I did want to highlight a couple things that I did really enjoy about this book. First of all, the author does such an exceptional job of pacing this story. There is definitely a build-up to kind of where the story is going, but he does a great job of immersing you immediately with a time travel sequence at the very beginning that helps you to kind of get your bearings in what's going on and get your blood pumping. And then from there, it's just a slow building of tension that worked perfectly and had the final act of the story just going absolutely bananas. I loved that so much. Additionally, I think that the author was so brilliant with his execution of the story as well, because the plot itself is one component of how compelling this is, but also his narrative choices with this book were so wonderful. Small details that you don't really notice at the beginning of the book pay off in really interesting ways throughout the story, and the author does such a great job of utilizing dramatic irony in a way that I was just blown away by. I love that reading experience so much. Now, this book isn't perfect. No books are, but this one has some flaws that I do also want to highlight because I don't want to just sit here and tell you it's the best book ever and then get your expectations too high. There are a couple things that I did have gripes with. First of all, the ending goes kind of in a direction that will work for some people and won't work for others. I mostly bought into it, but it definitely got a bit out there, and I had some questions at the end that I wish had gotten a little bit more of an answer. And then additionally, I had a couple complaints with some of the consistency of the way that the characters interacted with each other. Like I said, Beth is an amazing protagonist who has to work through some very serious emotional and career challenges and physical challenges. There's a lot going on in her story, but one of the biggest components is her not really knowing who she should trust, who she should be vulnerable with, and who she has to keep her guard up around. And sometimes she would trust somebody who I was like, why are you trusting this person? And in the moment, the person would act trustworthy, but then the next page they do something and I'd be like, is this the same character we're talking about here? Because why on earth would you trust this person after they did this? It doesn't make any sense to me. And in some ways, I felt like it was to keep the plot going in the direction it needed to go. But I almost wonder if there should have been a little bit more consistency between Beth and her interactions with some of the other characters that would have made some of those moments a little bit more believable and or shocking. That aside, though, this book is pretty fantastic, you guys. Those are such minor gripes, and ultimately, I can give this my full recommendation. I think that it is a great entry point for science fiction if you don't read a lot of science fiction. If you're somebody who might want to get into some books that are a little bit more thrilling or horror-y, but you've only read like sci-fi and fantasy, it works for that as well. It is the perfect bridge between the two, and it again solidifies my feelings about Philip Fracassi as a writer. I, at this point, want to read anything that he puts out, and this book was absolutely incredible. I loved it so much. It gets a 4.5 star rating for me, and I hope that you pick it up because it is such a good time. Are you interested in the third rule of time travel? Is this a book that you think you're going to be picking up? And what do you think about Philip Fracassi as a writer? Have you read any of his other books? Because I need to. I've only read this one and Boys in the Valley now, so I'll definitely be prioritizing some of his books in the very near future. Thank you so much to Orbit for sending me a review copy, and thank you so much to Philip Fracassi for writing such a fun book. I had a blast with this. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know if you're going to check this book out. I highly recommend it, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.